Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I loosened my tie as the elevator made its way up to our penthouse. The conference in Silicon Valley had ended ahead of schedule, and I was eager to surprise Victoria with a spontaneous dinner. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped out, my footsteps softened by the plush carpet. As I approached our bedroom, I heard Victoria's voice, light and filled with amusement. I paused, my hand resting on the door handle, not wanting to interrupt her. "Call Mom. You won't believe what happened today," Victoria's voice carried clearly through the door. "Mason called to say he'd be home late again. I swear, sometimes I think he loves his work more than me." I frowned, confused. I hadn't called her today. An older woman's voice responded, "Love, your affair is no secret. Everyone knows, except your fool of a husband." My blood ran cold. Affair? What the hell was going on? Victoria's laughter, once a sound that filled me with joy, now felt like ice water in my veins. "Oh, he'll never know. I'm so good at lying to him, and he believes anything I say, without a doubt." They both laughed, the sound grating against my ears. "Also, tonight I'm planning a wild day with Sebastian. He'll be here soon. We're going to that new exclusive club downtown." I staggered back from the door, my mind spinning. Sebastian. That name echoed in my head, mocking the trust one once had. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to my face? Memories flashed through my mind. Late nights at the office, pushing myself to build our company, securing our future. All those business trips, all that time apart. Had it all been for nothing? I retreated to my home office, silently closing the door behind me. My hands trembled as I poured myself a whiskey, the amber liquid splashing against the glass. I downed it in one swift gulp, the burn in my throat a brief relief from the ache in my chest. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed my phone. There was only one person I could trust right now. I dialed the number, praying she'd pick up. "Alexandra Russo speaking," came the crisp, professional voice of my longtime friend and lawyer. "Alex, it's Mason," I said, my voice rough. "I need your help. Can you meet me at your office? It's urgent." There was a brief pause before he replied, "Of course, Mason. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I ended the call, grabbed my jacket, and left the penthouse as quietly as I had entered. Victoria never knew I was there. Alexandra's office was a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city I had helped shape with my tech innovations. But now, that same city felt alien, as if it had conspired against me. "Mason," Alexandra said, rising from behind her desk, her brow furrowed as she took in my appearance. "What's going on?" I sank into the chair across from her. "Victoria's cheating on me." Alexandra's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" I recounted what I had overheard, each word feeling like a fresh wound, a betrayal all over again. Alexandra listened closely, her expression growing more serious with every detail. When I finished, she leaned forward. "Mason, I'm so sorry," she said, her tone soft but firm. "But we need to act quickly, to protect your assets and gather evidence." "What do you suggest?" I asked, grateful for her calm, composed demeanor. "First, we need to document everything. Your company's tech security systems are top-notch, right? We should use that to our advantage." She tapped her pen thoughtfully against the desk. "My brother James is a former police detective. He's a private investigator now. We should bring him in." I nodded, my mind already racing with possibilities. "What about digital evidence? Texts, emails, social media?" Alexandra smiled. "I have just the person for that. Liam Wolf, a cybersecurity expert. He can legally access and preserve any digital evidence of Victoria's infidelity." "Good," I said, feeling a spark of my old determination return. "Let's get them both in here. I want to move quickly on this." Alexandra made a few calls, and within an hour, both James and Liam had joined us. James, a broad-shouldered man with sharp eyes, listened intently as I repeated my story. Liam, young and wiry, was already typing away on his laptop. "Mr. Hawthorne," James said, his voice deepening with a kind tone. "I'm sorry you're going through this. We'll get to the bottom of it. I promise you that." Liam glanced up from his screen. "I can start monitoring her digital footprint immediately. If there's any evidence online, I'll find it." I nodded, a strange mix of gratitude and anger stirring within me. "Thank you both. I want everything done by the book. When I confront Victoria, I want there to be no doubt about what she's done." Alexandra placed a hand on my arm, her expression thoughtful. "Mason, you want to confront her yourself? It might be better to let us handle it." I shook my head firmly. "No, I need to do this. I need to look her in the eye when she lies to me, one last time. The room fell into silence, the weight of what was about to unfold settling heavily over all of us. All right, Alexandra finally said, her voice steady but edged with concern. Let's go over the plan one more time. We need to make sure everything is airtight. As we went through the details, a strange calm washed over me. The pain was still there, raw and pulsing, but now it was accompanied by something else, determination. Victoria might have betrayed me, but I'd be damned if I let her destroy everything I had worked for. I walked into our penthouse, my footsteps echoing in the empty foyer. The space that had once been our sanctuary now felt like a beautifully decorated lie. Each step I took seemed to emphasize the hollow emptiness that had settled in my chest. I made my way to the living room, bracing myself for what was to come. Victoria appeared, a vision in a slinky red dress that clung to her figure, leaving little to the imagination. Her blonde hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her lips were painted a deep crimson. She stopped in her tracks when she saw me, surprise flickering across her face before it was quickly replaced by a dazzling smile. "Mason, you're home early," she exclaimed, sauntering toward me with the intent of planting a kiss on my cheek. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Change of plans," I said coldly. The conference wrapped up sooner than expected. Victoria's smile faltered, but I caught a brief flash of something in her eyes. Calculation, maybe, or fear. "That's wonderful, darling," she said quickly, her voice bright but strained. "We should celebrate. How about I open a bottle of wine? Any plans for tonight?" I ignored her suggestion, my voice calm, betraying none of the turmoil swirling inside me. "Any plans for tonight?" I asked again, my tone hardening. She waved her hand dismissively, turning to adjust her earring in the mirror. "Oh, just a girls' night out with Chloe. Nothing exciting." The lie slipped off her tongue so effortlessly that, for a moment, I almost admired her skill. "Almost. Is that so?" I replied, my tone sharpening. "Funny, I could have sworn I heard you making plans with someone named Sebastian earlier." Victoria froze, her hand halfway to her ear. Slowly, she turned, her face a perfect mask of confusion. "Sebastian? I don't know what you're talking about," she said, feigning innocence. "Mason, are you feeling all right?" I let out a harsh laugh, the sound echoing in the room. "Drop the act, Victoria. I heard everything, your conversation with your mother, your plans for tonight. How good you are at lying to me," I said, watching her face shift from shock to defiance. "You were spying on me?" she demanded. "I came home early, hoping to surprise you," I replied, my voice cold. Guess the surprise was on me. Victoria's eyes quickly darted to her purse sitting on the coffee table. I moved faster, grabbing it before she could reach it. "Looking for this?" I asked, pulling out her phone and car keys. "You won't be needing these." "Mason, please," she said, her voice pleading. "It's not what you think. I can explain everything." I tossed a manila envelope onto the table. It landed with a soft thud that echoed in the tense silence. "Save it," I said coldly. "Those are divorce papers. I suggest you read them carefully." Victoria's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this to me. I'll ruin you, Mason. I'll take everything." I smiled, a cold, humorless expression on my face. "Good luck with that. You signed a prenup, remember? And I have more than enough evidence of your infidelity." Her eyes widened as the realization sank in. "You wouldn't," she stammered. "I already have," I replied, moving toward the door. "Oh, and don't bother trying to leave. The security system's been activated. You're not going anywhere tonight." As I closed the door behind me, I heard Victoria scream in frustration. It was quickly muffled as the soundproofing kicked in, another feature I'd installed in our high-tech home, originally for privacy. Now, it served a different purpose. I made my way to the elevator, my steps lighter than they had been in years. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a sense of liberation. For the first time in too long, I felt in control of my life again. As the elevator descended, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Alexandra. "It's done. What's our next move?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Meet me at the office. We have work to do. James found something." I stepped out into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the woman I thought I knew. I sat in James Russo's dimly lit office, the tick of an old clock on the wall marking the passage of time. James, his face etched with concentration, pored over a stack of files spread across his desk. "Mason, you're not going to like this," James said, looking up at me with a grim expression. I leaned forward, bracing myself. "Hit me with it." James pushed a file toward me. Your wife's lover, Sebastian Turner. He's not just some charming real estate agent. The guy's a bona fide con artist. I flipped open the file, my eyes scanning the pages. Each document revealed a troubling pattern. Wealthy, married women seduced and manipulated into bad investments. My stomach churned. How long has this been going on? I asked. My voice was tight as I spoke. How long has this been going on? James shook his head, his expression grim. It's hard to say for sure, but we traced his activities back at least 5 years. He's good at covering his tracks. Before I could respond, a knock at the door interrupted us. Liam walked in, his laptop tucked under his arm. You're going to want to see this, he said, setting up his computer. Liam's fingers flew over the keyboard as he pulled up a series of emails and messages between Victoria and Sebastian. The evidence was damning. Plans for secret rendezvous, discussions about their future together, and, worst of all, detailed strategies for siphoning money from my accounts. She's been transferring funds to an offshore account, Liam explained, pulling up a series of transactions. It's been small amounts, nothing that would raise immediate red flags. But over time, how much? I asked, my jaw clenching as the gravity of the situation began to settle in. Liam hesitated before answering. Just over $2 million. The room fell silent. I stood up, pacing the length of James's office as my mind raced. I could feel the betrayal, the lies, the theft, all colliding in a storm of rage. But beneath the fury and hurt, a plan began to form. I turned to face James and Liam. Gentlemen, I said, my voice steady, I think it's time we turn the tables on our con artists. James raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? A cold smile spread across my face as I met their gaze. They want to play games? Let's give them a game they'll never forget. The upscale restaurant buzzed with the quiet conversations of Seattle's elite. I spotted Sebastian at a corner table, his perfectly coiffed hair and designer suit a stark contrast to the genuine businessmen around him. As I approached, Sebastian stood, flashing a $1 million smile. Mason, I must admit, I was surprised to get your call, he said, extending his hand. I shook it firmly, noticing the expensive watch on his wrist, probably bought with my money. Sebastian, thanks for meeting me, I said with a slight nod. Shall we sit? We settled into our seats, and Sebastian wasted no time. So, Mason, what's this exciting opportunity you mentioned? I leaned forward, lowering my voice conspiratorially. How would you like to be part of the next big thing in real estate? Sebastian's eyes lit up with undisguised greed. I'm listening. I'm launching a new project, Green Haven, I continued. It's going to revolutionize eco-friendly living. We're talking smart homes, sustainable energy, the works. But I need a real estate expert to help bring it to life. Sebastian nodded eagerly. And you thought of me? I'm flattered, Mason. I smiled, knowing he was already hooked. Your reputation precedes you, Sebastian. I've heard great things about your business acumen. We spent the next hour discussing the details of Green Haven, and with each passing minute, I could see Sebastian's excitement grow. By the time the waiter cleared our plates, he was practically salivating at the prospect. This is incredible, Mason, Sebastian said, leaning back in his chair. But why me? I mean, not that I'm complaining. I fixed him with a steady gaze. Let's just say I have a feeling about you, Sebastian. I think we could do great things together. Sebastian raised his glass. To Green Haven and to a beautiful partnership. As we clinked glasses, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Sebastian was more than just hooked. He was in, and now, the real game was about to begin. I allowed myself a brief moment of satisfaction. The trap was set, and Sebastian had walked right into it. The Green Haven project office buzzed with energy as architects pored over blueprints, engineers debated technical specifications, and in the midst of it all stood Isabel Nova, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail. I watched as Sebastian entered the room, his eyes immediately drawn to Isabel. She looked up, flashing him a dazzling smile that I knew was entirely calculated. Sebastian, I called out, waving him over. I'd like you to meet someone. This is Isabel Nova, our lead software engineer. Sebastian took Isabel's hand, holding it a moment longer than necessary. A pleasure to meet you, Isabel. Mason didn't mention he had such talented and beautiful team members. Isabel laughed, the sound like tinkling bells. Oh, Mr. Turner, you're too kind. I'm just excited to be part of such an innovative project. I hid a smile, knowing that Isabel was playing her role to perfection. Over the next few weeks, I watched as she slowly, but surely, wormed her way into Sebastian's confidence. Late-night strategy sessions, chance encounters at local cafes, each interaction carefully orchestrated to feed Sebastian's ego and lower his guard. Meanwhile, across town, Victoria was growing increasingly agitated. I received regular updates from our surveillance team detailing her erratic behavior and frequent arguments with Sebastian. She was unraveling, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at the slow burn of her desperation. One afternoon, as I sat in my office reviewing the latest reports, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Hawthorne, my name is Chloe Wong. I'm an investigative journalist, and I have information you might find interesting. Can we meet?" I stared at the message, a mix of curiosity and caution washing over me. After a moment's hesitation, I typed out a reply. "Miss Wong, I'm intrigued. Let's meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Café Noir on 5th Avenue. As I hit send, I couldn't shake the feeling that the game was about to change once again. Café Noir was quiet at 2 p.m., with most of the lunch crowd already gone. I spotted a woman in the corner, her sharp eyes scanning the room from behind horn-rimmed glasses. As I approached, she stood, extending her hand. "Mr. Hawthorne, Chloe Wong. Thank you for meeting me." We sat, and Chloe wasted no time getting to the point. "I've been investigating Sebastian Turner for months. I know about his cons, his manipulation of wealthy women, and his current relationship with your wife." I leaned back, studying her face. "And why are you telling me this?" Chloe smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "Because I have a proposition for you, Mr. Hawthorne. I want to expose Sebastian and your wife, but I need your help to do it." "And what's in it for me?" I asked, even though I already had a good idea. "In exchange for your cooperation," she continued, "I'll ensure that you're portrayed positively in my expose. The wronged husband who turns the tables on the con artist who tried to ruin him. It's a story people will eat up." I pretended to consider her offer, though my mind was already racing with the possibilities. This could be the final piece of my plan. The coup de grace that would bring everything crashing down around Victoria and Sebastian. "What exactly did you have in mind, Miss Wong?" Chloe leaned forward, her voice low and intense. "A sting operation. We catch Sebastian in the act of fraud, expose Victoria's complicity, and bring down their whole operation." I nodded slowly, a smile spreading across my face. "Miss Wong, I think this is the beginning of a very fruitful partnership." As we shook hands, sealing our agreement, I couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. The endgame was approaching, and soon, very soon, Victoria and Sebastian would learn the true cost of their betrayal. The Green Haven launch party hummed with excitement, the atmosphere charged with energy. Champagne flowed freely as investors, politicians, and media personalities mingled, all eager to be part of what they believed would be the next big thing in sustainable living. I stood at the center of it all, playing the role of the gracious host, all the while keeping a watchful eye on Sebastian. He worked the room with ease, his charm flowing effortlessly from him like a magnet drawing people in. I had to hand it to him. The man knew exactly how to make an impression. As Sebastian approached, I braced myself. This was it, the performance of a lifetime. "Mason, my friend?" Sebastian clapped me on the back. "What a turnout. I think it's time we finalize our deal, don't you?" I nodded, allowing a hint of excitement to color my voice. "Absolutely, Sebastian. Let's step into my office." We made our way to a private room, leaving the noise of the party behind us. Sebastian wasted no time, pulling out a stack of documents with a flourish. "I've had my lawyers draw up the final contracts," he said, his eyes gleaming with barely concealed greed. "Once you sign these, we'll be full partners in Green Haven. Think of the possibilities, Mason." I made a show of reviewing the documents, my heart racing with anticipation. This was the moment. Everything hinged on it. "Everything looks good, Sebastian, but I have one small addition I'd like to make," I said, my voice steady, masking the excitement building within me. Sebastian's smile faltered for a split second before he quickly recovered. Of course. What did you have in mind?" I pulled out a single sheet of paper, my hand steady as I slid it across the desk. "Just a minor clause about profit distribution. Nothing to worry about." As Sebastian leaned in to read, I caught Isabel's eye across the room. She gave me a barely perceptible nod. Everything was in place. This was the moment we had all been waiting for. Sebastian glanced up after a moment, clearly impatient to finish the deal. "This seems fine," he said, his voice laced with frustration at the delay. "Let's sign and get back to the party. I'm sure the press is eager for an announcement." With a quick flourish, he signed the papers. I followed suit, my pen moving smoothly across the page. As his pen left the paper, I felt the weight of the moment settle over me. It was done. The deal was sealed. "Congratulations, Sebastian," I said, my voice cool and calm. I could almost hear the trap snapping shut around him, the final nail in the coffin. As I watched Sebastian smile, oblivious to what was about to unfold, I knew that everything was about to change. And soon, very soon, he and Victoria would face the consequences of their deceit. My voice was cold and unwavering. You've just signed over all your assets to a victim restitution fund. The color drained from Sebastian's face. What? What are you talking about? I stood over him, the full weight of the moment settling between us. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your con? About how you and Victoria planned to bleed me dry? Sebastian lunged toward the documents, but Isabel was faster. She swept into the room, her badge in hand. Sebastian Turner, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. As the gravity of the situation hit him, Sebastian's usual charm dissolved, revealing the ugly truth behind the facade. His eyes narrowed, and he sneered. You set me up. You can't do this. I leaned in close, my voice low and menacing. I just did. Enjoy prison, Sebastian. I hear they have a special fondness for con men there. Isabel led Sebastian away in handcuffs, and I turned to face the party. The final act of this drama was about to unfold. The launch party had erupted into chaos, whispers spreading like wildfire as Sebastian was escorted out of the venue in cuffs. I took to the stage, tapping the microphone to get everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the room. I'm afraid Mr. Turner won't be joining us for the rest of the evening. A ripple of nervous laughter ran through the crowd, the tension palpable. However, I continued, I assure you that Green Haven will proceed as planned, under my sole direction. As I fielded questions from the stunned attendees, I spotted Victoria pushing her way through the crowd. Her face was a mask of fury and panic. Mason, she shouted, storming up to the stage. What have you done? I stepped down to meet her, my voice calm, controlled. I've simply exposed the truth, Victoria. Your little game is over. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. You don't understand. Sebastian manipulated me. I never meant to hurt you. Before I could respond, Chloe appeared at my side. Save it, Victoria. We have proof that you were a willing participant in Sebastian's schemes. Victoria's eyes widened in recognition. Chloe, but you're my friend. Chloe's laugh was cold, devoid of warmth. I'm an investigative journalist, Victoria, and you've just handed me the story of a lifetime. As the weight of the situation sank in, Victoria's demeanor shifted. The mask of the wronged wife slipped away, revealing the calculating woman underneath. You think you've won? She hissed, her voice dripping with venom. I'll ruin you, Mason. I'll tell everyone what a cold-hearted bastard you are. I met her gaze, unflinching. Go ahead. Tell them how I caught my wife cheating, exposed a fraud, and protected countless potential victims from your schemes. I'm sure they'll be horrified. Her face contorted with rage, and she raised her hand to slap me. But before she could, security intervened, gently yet firmly escorting her from the premises. As she was led away, I turned to Chloe. You got everything? She nodded, patting her recorder. Every word. This expose is going to blow the lid off the whole operation. I allowed myself a small smile. Good. Make sure the world knows exactly who Victoria and Sebastian really are. Months passed, and the dust began to settle. Green Haven, now fully under my control, had become a beacon of sustainable living. My reputation, far from being tarnished by the scandal, had soared. People saw me as a victim who had turned the tables on those who tried to exploit him. I stood at the podium, surveying the packed auditorium. The energy in the room was electric as I prepared to unveil my latest innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying easily through the space. Today marks a new chapter in the integration of technology and daily life. I present to you Neuralink, a revolutionary brain-computer interface that will change the way we interact with our world. As I launched into my presentation, demonstrating the capabilities of Neuralink, I felt a surge of pride. This was my moment, my redemption, and this time, no one would take it from me. I scanned the audience, my gaze locking with a woman in the front row, Dr. Layla West, the brilliant neuroscientist whose work had been pivotal in developing Neuralink. I wrapped up my speech to a wave of thunderous applause, then made my way off the stage. Layla met me at the bottom of the steps, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Mason, that was incredible, she said, her voice warm. The way you explained the complex neural pathways, you made it accessible to everyone. A spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time stirred within me. It wasn't just attraction. It was a genuine connection. I had a good teacher, I replied with a smile. Your research laid the foundation for all of this. As we continued discussing the potential applications of Neuralink, I couldn't help but feel the growing bond between us. I found myself truly engaged for the first time since the ordeal with Victoria and Sebastian began. Layla's passion for her work matched my own, and her integrity shone through in every word. There was something refreshing about her, something real that made everything else fade into the background. Listen, I said, making a split-second decision. I have some ideas for expanding Neuralink's capabilities. Would you be interested in collaborating? Layla's face lit up, and I could see the spark of excitement in her eyes. Absolutely. I've been developing some theories about enhancing memory recall that could dovetail perfectly with your work. As we made plans to meet and discuss our ideas further, I felt a sense of anticipation building inside me, something I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about business or innovation. It was about something more. A new chapter in my life, built on mutual respect, shared passion, and the possibility of creating something truly groundbreaking. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave the conference center, Chloe caught up with me. "Quite a show, Mason," she said, grinning. "I see you've met Drive West." I raised an eyebrow, teasing. "Keeping tabs on me, Chloe?" She laughed. "Always. But don't worry, this is off the record. I just wanted to let you know that my book about the whole Green Haven scandal is set to hit shelves next month." I nodded, feeling a mixture of emotions. "And how does it end?" Chloe's expression softened, and I could tell she had thought about it. "With justice served, and a man who refused to be a victim." "You come off pretty well, Mason." As we said our goodbyes, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. The pain of Victoria's betrayal had faded into the background, replaced by a fierce determination to build something meaningful, something that would last. My phone buzzed with a text from Layla, confirming our meeting for the following day. I smiled, the anticipation building once more. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. And this time, I was facing it with my eyes wide open, ready to seize what came next. In the months following the explosive end of her marriage, Victoria's life unraveled in ways she hadn't anticipated. The scandal surrounding her betrayal, the exposure of her involvement with Sebastian, and the public humiliation that followed had left her isolated and vulnerable. The luxury, the status, the seemingly perfect life she had once enjoyed, all of it had vanished, replaced by a cold reality. Victoria had tried to reach out to a few times after the divorce, hoping that time had softened the bitterness. She sent messages, trying to convince her remorse, but each message went unanswered. She even tried to call, but it was always the same. Voicemail after voicemail, no response. 6 months after the launch of Neuralink and the fallout from the Green Haven scandal, the world seemed to be settling into a new rhythm for Mason. The shadows of betrayal that had once consumed his life were now distant memories, replaced by a sense of purpose and possibility. But not everyone in his past had been so fortunate. Inside the walls of a maximum security prison, Sebastian Turner had tried to play the same games that had earned him a fortune. However, his manipulations, fraud, and con artistry couldn't shield him from the brutality of the environment he now called home. A prison riot, sparked by escalating tensions between rival gangs, erupted one grim afternoon. It was a perfect storm of chaos, a frenzy of violence and screams that echoed through the facility. In the midst of it all, Sebastian, who had once strutted through life with an air of untouchable arrogance, found himself cornered by a group of inmates. They had been waiting for the right moment, the moment when his name would no longer have the power to protect him. Surrounded, with nowhere to run, Sebastian fought back as best he could, but it was futile. The riot provided the perfect cover for his violent end. As the guards and riot police managed to restore order, Sebastian's lifeless body was found in a forgotten corner of the prison yard. The news would soon reach the outside world. His life, much like his schemes, had been short-lived. It was fitting, in a way. Sebastian had always thought he could control the game, but in the end, he had been nothing more than a pawn. Mason, on the other hand, was moving forward. His life had taken on a new direction, one far removed from the mess that had once consumed him. The success of Neuralink was undeniable, and with Layla by his side, the future looked even brighter. The past 6 months had been transformative. Mason had thrown himself into his work, but it was Layla's quiet presence that had made everything feel different. She had proven herself not only as a brilliant collaborator, but as someone who understood him in a way no one else ever had. It was more than just mutual respect. It was a bond that felt deeper with every conversation, every shared goal. One evening, after a particularly successful presentation of Neuralink to a group of investors, Mason found himself standing on the rooftop terrace of their office, Layla at his side. The city lights glittered in the distance, casting a soft glow over the evening. He turned to her, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess them. Layla, I think it's time for the next step. She looked at him, her expression open, knowing. She didn't say anything right away but placed her hand gently over his. After a moment, she smiled, a small, warm smile that made his heart race just a little. Mason, I think we've been building something special, something that's not just about the work, but about us. Her words were the confirmation he needed. In the months since they'd started collaborating, he'd come to realize that she was the one, not just the brilliant scientist or the ambitious partner, but the one who made him feel alive again. I want to marry you, Layla, he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. I've spent so much time focused on revenge, on fixing the damage that was done. But now, I want to build something with you. For us. Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded, her voice soft but firm. Yes, Mason, I want that too. 6 months after their first real meeting, amidst the success of Neuralink, Mason and Layla married in a small, private ceremony surrounded by only the people who had stood by them, Chloe, James, and a few trusted colleagues. The day was understated, elegant, and full of the quiet promise of a future that was no longer overshadowed by betrayal, but built on love and shared dreams. Their vows were simple but heartfelt, each one a promise of something real and lasting. As they exchanged rings, Mason felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. He had turned the page. The past was no longer something he had to fight against. It was just that, the past. With Layla by his side, he was ready to face the future, not as a man broken by betrayal, but as someone who had learned from it, grown stronger, and was finally, truly happy. As they left the ceremony hand in hand, the world ahead of them seemed full of endless possibility. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.